Minutes? Second, any discussion, mistakes? Rhonda, you never make mistakes, so we don't.
Let's be fair, I took minutes.
Oh, no, that's right. Jim took them last time. That's right. That's right. Oh, that's right.
I took them, so.
All right, all those in favor? Carried. I just got a couple things. I know I had to apologize for missing the dedication for Betty. I was on Lake Ontario chasing cohos and king salmon. So I missed that. I heard that. I got some real favorable comments. It really was nice. And thank you from the staff for doing it. The other thing, is the opening of the office. I guess things are starting to open up and change. Just kind of exciting to see. The one thing I did want to mention too is I sat in on a Zoom meeting. I'm on a committee, Lake George, Lake Champlain, 5-county economic resiliency plan. And it was the agriculture portion. And anything from dairy farmers to Chazy. We had a North Clinton Parker. It runs about 10,000 taps in the northern part of New York. Some wineries, pumpkin farms, Nettles, and Brown's Christmas tree farm. And one of the things was discussing going through COVID and everything we've had. It seems like apples and Christmas trees are the two that seem to have the least problems. As far as there seems to be a lot of demand for it. The one thing that hit me, and I'll bring this up just so I think it's important, the one issue that everybody was facing, whether it was Nettles Farm or that poor guy that was talking at a Zoom meeting when he was spreading manure in a tractor. I've seen everything. He's bouncing around in the seat, and he says, was labor. He was paying, and I said, if it wasn't so far to go to Chazy, they were looking to pay somebody close to $25 an hour to run tractors. He couldn't find anybody. Nettles Farm is having a lot of problems getting people. Pumpkin farms. It was kind of hit me. Dairy farmers. And a lot of it was beginning jobs. And a lot of this discussion was to transportation and housing, coming up with ways to house people to work. And that kind of floored me, I thought, today. It was just something surprising. So they're looking down the road saying, what are we going to do next fall? What's going to happen? I guess as I found out the last few days, whether you wear a mask, don't wear a mask, very confusing. And they're trying to figure out what they can do, what kind of help they can do for the different agriculture. So it was kind of an interesting, Jim, and thank you for getting me involved in that. It was very interesting and learned a lot. I don't know about spread manure, but $25 an hour to run a tractor, I can do that. Okay, so that's all real I have to report, and it's nice to see the office as we get back into it, as we head forward. Now, where we go from here, it'll be interesting. Rhonda, we'll turn it over to you.
Hopefully everybody received this packet. Total assets, $332,660.87. Bills for payment, $7,256.62. And I'll send everything around for signature.
Okay, you want to do a motion on that? Has everybody had a chance to look at that, or you want to wait till we pass it around?
You can wait.
No, we can wait then. All right. Correspondence.
Do you have any folder? Correspondence folder?
Yeah.
So we got a thank you from Caitlin Stewart, who did put together the Adirondack Forest Pest Symposium back about a month ago. They had 38 people attend, which I think is pretty good. I sat in a portion of it and presented on part of it, and it was well done. Just looking after 1 year of people getting accustomed to virtual training and using Zoom, it is amazing how adept we have come to do this type of thing. And that's why we're going to probably keep the Zoom presentation. Nick's recording it, so we'll people will be able to call in. It's convenient for Ryan and Susan here and anybody else who's interested. So the second thing is after he graduates from high school, we're going to get a volunteer intern who's been primarily working with Dean and Bob. Ridge Russo, the Warrensburg kid. The interesting thing is he's spotlighted in the newsletter here, and he actually talks about doing the Envirothon sponsored by the district, and he's going to be an opportunity to intern with us after graduation, and looking for field conservation. So kind of interesting that stuff comes through. We were also, if you picked up the Sun from local newspapers, there's an article about the project that Bob and Nick are working on with the Basin program with our grant, the videography. So nice little article Tom Randall put in there. So, and lastly, a little bit of humor. This morning I got an email saying that I am the winner of $1 million. And in order to claim that, all they need is my full name, my country I was born in, my age, my occupation, my email password, my cell phone number, my home telephone number, my bank name, my bank address, the bank's telephone number, the bank account number, the routing number, and the SWIFT code. It's got to be legitimate. So you never know what you will be sent in an email, but I thought I'd print it off because made me laugh pretty well. Yeah, I mean, basically throw it on the wall and see what sticks. So that's all I have for correspondence. Nothing too heavy.
Nothing too heavy. All right, we're going to go into our presentation.
All right, give me a second. I'm going to go into my office.
Trouble is now, if you get a legitimate one, you're not too sure if you really won. If somebody calls and say, "Hey, you just won the $500 Kiwanis one," you're going, "Yeah, good, what?"
All right. Nick, did you make me a co-host?
Did.
Okay. So I thought today we'd do a little bit of utilizing Google Earth. Susan sat through some of the information that I'll go through during the symposium.
Are you going to take us on a flight?
Yeah, I will. So that you liked that, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. So, but I thought it would be good just to review some stuff. There's been some changes to Google Earth over the last few years if you haven't looked at it. Ryan, do you use Google Earth a lot or intermediary or?
There he is.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Okay. So let me know if you pick up anything from this, but we'll get into it right now. So, Google Earth Pro, it's pretty simple. I think most people have loaded it or downloaded it at some point in time. You have your directionality, your location, your street view, zooming in and out. So it's a lot of basic stuff.
Get the other. No,
Was that a door?
no, on the screen. He's got it off there, but we need to switch the screens. He's got it in the corner.
Oh, come
There. Thank you.
We good?
We're okay, Dylan.
on. Lights are.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we do see Lake George, right? Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So we have Lake George here. You don't need to look at me, so I'm gonna turn that off. So if you're not familiar with Google Earth, one of the funniest experiences I've ever had, Bob was on the phone one day, probably 3 years ago, looking at a pond, trying to locate it with a pond owner who's on the phone with him. And Bob said, well, I think I found your pond. And basically the guy said, I'll go outside and wave. And that's not how this works. We're not talking about instant video or instant satellite feed, but people have a big misconception about it. It's not to the level of the geographic information systems that we use, but for soil and water districts that don't have a big budget, you can do a lot of stuff, and landowners can do a tremendous amount as compared to just a few years ago. So one of the first things, when you load Google Earth in, as you zoom in, either I'm just zooming in with the scroll. A lot of times what will happen when it's a new, let me go back up to here, when it's a new download, is that you have an automatic tilt and it drives me nuts. Okay. So, because it always tilts up and down. So if you want to get rid of that, tools are basically where everything is, and options. This is worded oddly. Do not automatically tilt while zooming. Well, how come they just don't have tilt on or off? But this allows you to now just zoom in, zoom out. Let me take that off. And you're not flying down, because a lot of time you lose the perspective in what you're looking at. So just little things like that you have to practice, become more familiar with. Turn this off. So this is what we see now. This is just a 2D view. And if I drop it, there we go, we're in a flat plane. But over on the left-hand side, basically your layers, this is what changes up. This is where the roads are, the road names are. I would recommend clicking on this. It's called terrain. And it gives you depth. Oops. So it gives you some depth perspective. That comes in handy if you were able to maybe look off in the distance and see a mountain across the way. If you can line up 2 points, you can bring those 2 points into Google Earth and then draw a straight line out, and then change your perspective and say, oh, it's that mountain that I'm looking at right there. So it gives you some orientation ability beyond just looking at a map and taking a guess. It's important to know that Google Earth is always updating with information. I'm going to scoot down into Glens Falls right now. This is where it was first, I first noticed it in the county. You can turn this layer on 3D buildings, and you know how far we've come in the last few years. I'm gonna zoom in, and you have the 3D right here of the buildings, all the houses and everything. I was talking to Nick about this earlier. There are programs, you can really see it really pops out. You can get dimensions from this. You know, a lot of this remote sensing that probably you've heard of or worked on in school at some point in time is really coming to fruition at this time. And you can get measurements, you can get heights. I would guess that permit administrators, people doing this, who are assessors and things of that nature, are probably using this type of software and will continue to do it. You know, if people wanted to do tree evaluations, you probably can get some information that identifies the types of trees based on shape and some of the other factors. But it's just this is the you know, the cemetery down in the city. It's just amazing how far the technology has come in just a few short years. And not every place has this 3D imagery though. Let me back up. Mr. Brown, if it's okay, I'm going to go check up at your place.
Sure.
All right. So here's where, let's see if we have it here. I don't know if we do or not. Whoops. As you can see, we do not have it. So depending on where you are in the county, the more urbanized areas, I'm going to check in Warrensburg here.
Should I go out and wait?
Yeah, if you want to wait, go ahead. Nope. So it almost has a 3D appearance, but that's what that terrain function is. If I turn it off, you know, it goes away. Turn it on, it comes back. But the 3D ability is not found here. So those are, you know, just a couple little things as you first start using Google Earth. You know, looking at Echo Lake right here, you have the availability to go back and look at the historic imagery. So you can drag it. And so they're saying 1985. So the imagery wasn't that crisp or clean. Then it goes to 1995. I remember the black and whites. That's what we had to work with when I first got here, and some of them were infrared. But it's actually pretty clear. You can see a lot of information here. Then we go to 06. So within 11 years, we have quite an advancement. 08, 2009, 11. It's not quite as, yep, it is clean in 2013. And 16 is the last one they have listed. If you never know what you're looking at, look down here on this little title block, and that'll give you the imagery date. You'll see a lot of our photos. When you find photos, they're not necessarily all from the same date. They're not all from the same year even. You know, the hurricane that came through in 2011, there's images in Lake George and some other parts, but maybe not up in Johnsburg. And a lot of these are stitched together from different sources. It's kind of an amalgamation of it. So just a little bit of background. Now, you know, if you're interested in using this as a mapping program or finding certain things, you know, you can type in an address, 394 Schroon River Road, Warrensburg. Yeah, it's automatically going to take us there. And Mark was sharing a story with me earlier where he had to have his 12-year-old granddaughter help him out on something. And yeah, you know, don't worry, Mark, I'm going to be there soon. But let's say you want this image, but hey, I don't want that point anymore. How the heck do you get rid of it? Well, you go like this. You know, it's some stuff you just have to try. So you get rid of your search point. You have the availability if you like this. This is obviously our office. With the last update about 4 years ago, they added in some functionality so that you can save the image. You can view it in Google Maps, but if you save the image, you can make a map out of it. You can, you know, test SWCD office. Just click off of that. You can see that, the legend. I don't have anything in there, but whatever would be over here, you can have in here. You can save it as a PDF. You can print it off. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of the stuff that we work on isn't, you know, you don't have to have GIS to do a lot of this stuff. Now, this might be kind of interesting just to do see if this is altered at all. So there it is. It was a very blurry world in 1985, 1995. So we can see this oxbow here. So this was taken in May 23rd in 08. So it was dry in May 23rd in 2008. Don't you agree, Mark? You remember that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, but you can just see the change, and there we are. This is the following year. That's 11 months later. So a lot more water. 2011. You can just see how the earth changed. You know, here's 3 years after that. This is the year that we moved in, I believe, and the water was lapping the bottom of the I-beam of the bridge here during our tree and shrub handout. That's the highest I've ever seen the Schroon River. It was impressive. The road was flooded here. I don't think it was flooded necessarily from, I think it was backed up, but I believe a beaver dam or something had bust loose in the creek here and flooded the road, and someone in an Audi or a Saab tried to drive through and it was flooded, and they just flooded out the vehicle. So, but anyway, a lot of good information you can find on here and take a look at. So if you're interested in saving a location, maybe you're interested in, the town's interested in a piece of property, you create this little button here. You go up here and you call it, you know, test mark. And let's say you don't like the yellow. That's how you change the icons. You can even import your own icon. You can assign it a picture or whatever. Let's say, let's go with this. Hey, you know, you can, so there's the test mark. You know, it's locked into place. It's over here in the legend. Let's say you wanted to send that to an assessor for an evaluation. You don't have to print off a map. You go up here, you right click and save the place as. Save it in someplace you can locate it. Now it's what's called a KML or a KMZ file. They're practically the same thing. And you can attach that to an email and you can send it right to somebody. And if they have Google Earth, which a lot of people do, then they can open it right up and it'll zoom right to it. So you can still have, you can still edit it and say, let's say you're over here, interested in property. And then they will get the information in notes. So a lot of information can get exchanged this way. It's a very small amount of data that it actually takes up, this KMZ, KML file. So let me smoke this out of here. Now, you can also, these are all the tools. You can draw a polygon and say, I'm interested in this property. We're just going to save it as untitled polygon. You can change the, right now it's filled and outline. And the thing that used to drive me nuts is, oh, I want to change the outline color because that's what I'm looking at. I just want to see yellow. Well, you have to be smart enough, and this took me a while when I first started using Google Earth, to go to the area and say, I just want it outlined. So once you have that, you can do the same thing. You can say, test plot. And then once you have it, you can save untitled polygon. And I'm going to delete this. And let's say I'm just going to scoot way out. You know, where are we? The SAC. We're over at the Great SAC. So let's say it, you know, your assessor, the person you're dealing with, lives over in Northville. Okay, and we'll pretend that we are them. So they get an email from you because you can open up these KMZ files that you can email them, you have them saved. So they just, let's pretend that this was from an email, an attachment, this untitled polygon. It'll put you right back there. So again, easy way to move imagery around, to ask questions that way. It's free, you know, you just have to have access to it. Now, we can get rid of this. And again, you can have them, you can create them in, you know, if in GIS, you can save them, you can convert them and save them. You can create them in Google Earth. You can create them. Susan saw on at the symposium, you can create this information on your phone if you have a GPS app and then save it and send it. There's a lot of easy, simple ways. Well, I guess I should say easy ways of getting that information. It may not always be simple. Now, just quiz question. Did we have a bunch of UFOs land here? So anybody know what those are?
Yeah.
That's the glamping. Yeah, the glamping circles. So, you know, Google Earth, it gets everything. So now, one interesting thing, if you start looking at Google Earth, that you might find, if you use the street view, you might find something like this, and it's not cataracts. There's a clean shot, here's not. So whether you went up and down the street, I thought it was an error at first, but for some reason, if you wanted to have privacy and you don't want to have your property viewed from the streetscape, you can do that. I went in and checked it out. Basically, once you've done it though, it's kind of like doing something on Facebook. Once you've done it once, you're not going to be able to undo it. So, but why do you want to do that? You know, some people might laugh and, well, you know, it's kind of that mentality. No, there are valid reasons, and some of the best reasons are for protection of people. Maybe just using an example, battered spouses, you know, through DSS, they can get moved. Well, they don't want to have any information, you know, if they're posting stuff on Google or on Facebook, they don't want to be able to have it linked back up. So there's a lot of privacy. So you can do that for your own house if you want. I mean, they're driving around everywhere anyway. Not every location in our county has the road, yeah, the street view, but you'd be surprised at how many do. So I've already talked about adding some of the files, but I'm going to go through a practice with one here. These are ones that I've saved. Whenever I do stuff like this, I have a tendency to use my property because to me it's not that invasive. So these points were provided to me from my surveyor in a KMZ file. So you can put them automatically on here. Now, what good does that do me? Well, if you're kind of interested in drawing your property, you can certainly well, you could if I didn't screw it up, but there we go. Close enough. So right there is my basic property line. So what benefit is that? Well, if I'm in that master forest owner course through Cooperative Extension, which is excellent. And, you know, a lot of the folks have surveys of the properties, but they don't have, you know, the ability to go out, you know, unless everything is blazed, and a lot of properties aren't blazed, aren't marked along the edges. How do you know what's where? I'm concerned not with a neighbor doing anything on my property line, but you know, if I want to cut some trees, I don't want to cut a neighbor's tree. You cut a tree down, that can cause a lot of problems at times. So trying to avoid that is, in my mind, is extremely important. So knowing where the lot lines are is good, but then, you know, it still doesn't do you a lot of good if you don't know, or if you have a survey, how do you work the two? Now, I wouldn't say this would be for my property here, but let's say Mark Brown, who has a chunk of property, you know, if you had a full survey, you could scan the survey in and just down here. And then there is this tool right here, which is called the Add Image Overlay. So we want to browse the image overlay. Okay, there's my survey, but you know, it doesn't match up. I'm not going to take all the time in the world, but you can see, you can take and stretch and adjust as necessary. It's usually, I find it better to do without the terrain function on it. And Nick, if you'll vouch for me, you've seen me get this on pretty much straight on, right?
Yeah, yeah, really close, accurate.
So eventually, if you spend enough time, which might only be another 5 minutes or so, and I'm not going to, but let's just say that's close enough. You can change the opacity. I'm gonna throw the terrain on. And if I had spent the time to line these up, you can have a quick image on Google Earth with your survey shown. And again, if I spend a few more minutes and it doesn't take that long of a time, you can really line this up really well. So if you have a woodlot somewhere, I'd recommend you doing this. I'm happy to walk you through it, to show you how to do it. It doesn't take that much. It's just a little bit of patience. So that's a very good thing, because once you have this saved here, you can do the same thing. Save to My Places. It's saved as a KMZ file. I did this for a landowner in Glens Falls. I lined up his survey with his parcel data, as you know, just kind of assuming that was correct, and sent it off to him. And now he can open this up and have it over Google Earth and take a look at it throughout the historic aspect of it. So that's a lot of a good use for that. Now, the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hop out and get into my notes here. USGS has really done a lot of work with mapping in the last decade. And I can send this link to any of you who are interested. But this is what I want to show. There's a historic topo map collection. And where we used to have to go to what was the University of New Hampshire, and you would get what's called a quarter quad, and then you'd have to reference it. Well, and again, Susan saw some of this. If we zoom in, and again, Mark, if you don't mind, I'm going to use your property because it's much more interesting than mine. There we go. So here we are looking at the screen just above our office, and that's Poker Pond, I think is what they call it, up on the hill. So right now we're just looking at some topography. If you click on it, this red line here is the delineation between the quads. And look how many topo quads are available. And a lot of them are the same year. There's some differentiation, some corrections, but look at them all. The new ones back to 1895. So let's look at the 1895. So we can open it up as a JPEG, and it's going to take a second, so please bear with me. So if you just wanted to take this in, take it somewhere to get printed, great. You can zoom in, you move it around. There's Friends Lake, there's Trip Lake, there's Kellam Pond. There's Poker Pond, and there's the old road that went through. I think, doesn't this connect to across from where the dump is, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's interesting to get into some of these old maps to really see how much infrastructure has changed. I don't know if there's a roadway going up there now or not, but there's a lot of other roads out there which you would never know existed. That's why when they say, oh, we're making a lot of new roads, I'm not really sure we are. There's a lot of roads that aren't around anymore. Well, that's nice. But what's even nicer is you click on this one, this KMZ. You say, I want to open. You double click in the file, and it's already georeferenced in Google Earth. So this historic record is already there, and you can go into I believe it's the map. There's a couple different subfiles. There you go. Now, what does this mean? Well, someone who likes history, this could be very valuable for that. The Ted Caldwells of the world, because now they can get the historic maps. They can overlay it on multiple aerial images going back to the early 90s. They can look for roads. They can look for farms. Mark, on your property, if there were some outbuildings that are no longer there that your dad told you about, you could potentially look for them on the USGS maps. If there are old hand-drawn snowmobile maps, snowmobile trails, anything like that, there's a lot of this data which is lost and it's not recorded well. So if we're able to kind of pool all these items together, we can really get them onto a usable platform. That doesn't mean they're all going to go to some national website, but if we had some local historic things, and old farming maps, or if somebody wanted to put a farm in, this is an example Nick and I've used. Let's say there's a 40-acre farm somebody wants to reestablish, and there's an old water hole, but nobody quite knows where it is. If you find it, a lot of the old farmers used to hand draw maps and with an X or something like that for the old spring. We might be able to georeference it close enough that they can go out and relocate or refine the spring if it's been buried. So there's a lot of good, interesting things that can be done. Now, the other thing that Susan commented on, and I'll just use the Hudson here, and I think I have to draw it this way. So let's go from 28. So I'm just going to draw a line down the river here a bit. Oops, I'm gonna close that out and redraw it. And it's gonna be a little choppy. A lot of the times what I'm doing, I've done in GIS because it's a little easier. And we're gonna say that's good. And we're gonna call this river path. Once that's established, you can come down to this icon. And I've already set it to a certain elevation and speed. And I'm not doing anything. It's a record of the path. So basically you have a virtual flight simulator built into Google Earth. And you can come along, you can take along at look at the existing areas. You can look at the floodplains here. You can pause it. You know, there's gravel bars along the way. You can map these out. We have the islands. You have the outcrop right here. So you know there's a natural pinch point in the river. There's Hudson Street coming in. And I just terminated it here. But you can go miles and miles and miles. Now you can record it. I've recorded it and presented that at some symposiums before. But you can also change it and go to options and say, you know, I want a different tilt angle and I want to be lower. So let's say we want a 70-degree tilt and a camera range of 500 meters. I go back, it will lower us down and basically flatten out the imagery. You can change the speed and then it'll automatically play. So I think, you know, for both the professional and the landowner or the non-professional, I think there's a lot of great features that you can utilize on Google Earth. You know, you could set this up if you really wanted to, like I'm thinking of you, Frank, you know, if you wanted to have something done on Stony Creek like this, you could make a video of it just as we're doing now. We can get rid of that line. You could save the file and then you could post it at your website if somebody wanted to do that. You know, you could do driving tours this way. You know, I did the train, I think one day, or Sarah Frankenfeld did the train and I did the river, and it's very simple to do. There's no other magic necessary. So I just wanted to bring that to you so that you could see it. To say that you don't have to spend a lot of money and you don't have to have a lot of experience to get some pretty cool features out of it and see how useful it is for local planners, town boards, towns, districts, and the average landowner. So I don't know if anybody is still awake and has any questions, but let me know if you have any questions.
Very interesting.
All right, then I'll assume that everybody's asleep, so I did a good job.
Yeah.
So, all
I
right,
think
I'm gonna.
what you really
What's that?
need is, what you really need is time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I probably should have done this presentation last year, pre-COVID. So, but I'm gonna hop out and go back in the back room. So if anybody wants any more information or wants to go through a session, I'm happy to do that. It's very simple, pretty basic. And I don't know, Ryan, since you said you used it, was there anything else that you would throw in there? I think it's good for planning and for a variety of things.
It is, yeah. I like using it for, we use it for functions to search coordinates to find farms and fields and things like that, measure dimensions, square footage, area. A lot of cool little tools on there. And the Google Earth Pro, I think it became free maybe 5 years ago or so. It's awesome.
Yeah, when it first came, it was like $20 or something like that, and you couldn't draw polygons, or you could draw polygons, but you couldn't calculate acreage. And then all of a sudden, they must have decided, why are we charging for it? You know,
Yeah,
why are we charging and making another $1 million when we make $1 billion a day? You know,
That's right.
So,
Yeah, they open up a lot of tools on there. It's very useful. It's nice.
All right, I'm gonna hop in the back.
Well, I'd like to have had some of that when I was working with DEC. I could have saved a lot of time instead of looking at those topo maps.
Well, it wasn't anything that I was, George Hilton forwarded me some info and found it because I was Martin and I have been taking time and georeferencing it. And I once found that right. So yeah, because you can download them georeferenced into GIS. So somebody spent a lot of time and money to do that, but it's, you know, there's over by, in Johnsburg, there's a Dankers Road and it comes out of South Johnsburg Road. Then there's kind of across down the road from the south of there on South Johnsburg Road, there's a road that connects and goes across what's now state land and ends up on Steel Road off of 28. And that road used to exist going through, it looked like some ungodly wetland swamp. But it's, to me, it's just fascinating to see the history with that. So.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I've looked at it, used it a little bit. You've already, I'm gonna have to get a 12-year-old to show me how to do the rest.
Yeah, anytime. She'll far exceed me, so.
All right, we'll go into the regular business session, the office reopening and moving forward.
All right, so the other week, talked to Rhonda and Mark, and we felt that it was a good time to reopen, especially with having you folks here last month. And it just so happened it was within a day or two that New York started opening up, and so it worked out well. What's the big change for us? The doors are unlocked. Honestly, that was the big change. So we kind of did things, I think, a good way. It was smart. I don't know if we have anything else to do at this time. We'll just keep an eye on how everything's going and what New York's doing, what the county's doing. It was interesting to sit in on a manager's meeting last week, though. It was to see I don't know what you would say, how extreme everything was across the state. So Cortland County, for example, I believe it was Portland, Amanda Barber, my counterpart, was having some trouble at the county level. County administrator wants them open full time. They are in a building that is, they're co-located with USDA. So the federal system takes over there. So they're only able to be 50% staffed. That's not 50% soil and water and feds. That's 50% for everybody. So the county administrator is a bit perturbed that they are not back in the office, but they are being housed by the feds, so they can't. So, and then there's that case. Clinton County, Pete up there is basically the same as us. And there are districts that are having internal issues with people who are vaccinated, unvaccinated, and then people who just, hey, how come you're not vaccinated? And then won't stop. So it's just nice to see that everybody has worked together, and maybe it's because we're somewhat isolated up here, that everything seems to be working out. But I thank my stars that I'm not in some of the other areas of the state. And the more urban areas too are a bit challenging, so. Anyway, we're gonna keep going with what we're doing. We're gonna be outside a lot anyway, but we'll be going through all the stuff that we need to, and if something comes up and somebody gets sick, then we'll just have to deal with it from there. And that's why we have the other policies in place. So.
All right, well, thank you. We're going to the MS4 reports.
So Friday, I presented at the County Board of Supervisors meeting. County report is here. If anybody would like to see it, it's been available online. It's been available here. I sent a copy to the county attorney's office this morning. I believe the chairwoman is going to sign that today or tomorrow. I'm not sure if they want me to send a copy in to the DEC or if the county wants to, but I asked Bob Terwilliger to let me know. It has to be submitted by the 1st. Nick is going to be submitting Queensberry's. Theirs is already signed. So generally I just do a cover letter for both and send it in, save a little bit of postage. So overall, I think things went fairly well based on what we could find. I was a little concerned with COVID activities I wasn't too concerned in the aspect of the EPA or the DEC because everybody was shut down. But, you know, if you lose ground in something like this, you're never going to gain it. So, but overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the county report. But anybody can ask me questions if they'd like. Otherwise, I can give you a copy if you wish.
Okay, thank you. Emergency stream intervention training.
All right, so I'll keep talking. So Mike mentioned he wanted to suffer, and I don't know why. He's thinking about signing up for this. I did the 2-hour emergency stream intervention training via Zoom, and it worked out really well. We had about 25 people in attendance. Did that come for our training? Yes, yeah. And I think it went pretty well. We had some good questions, good feedback. I thanked Caitlin because I asked Caitlin from Hamilton County if she could monitor the chat box, and I think it worked well. So as a phase 2, we are being reimbursed by the state committee through Saratoga County Soil and Water, which is the Upper Hudson Watershed Coalition, for having an in-person 6-hour training. That's going to be on the 14th of June, which is a Monday. It's in Ballston Spa. Lunch is provided. All information will be provided. There's 2 PDHs available. There's no cost to it. The cost is listening to myself and Jim Pinero from the DEC talk for 5.5 hours.
Well, not for himself. I went through that training a couple of years ago. It's very good. A lot of good information, a lot of good material.
Yeah, I talk a lot and I hear myself talk a lot and I get bored of myself. So Jim Pinero is fantastic simply because he had to work in the Catskills. It's a different perspective, a total different types of streams. But right now, I think last week we had 4 people signed up, which if we got 20, I'd be surprised. But we had Steve Gersler, the city engineer from Glens Falls, signed up. Yeah. And we had, I think, 3 DOT people, which I think was great.
Well, you had a lot of locals when you did it a couple of years ago. So.
Yep. Yeah.
That was a good crowd.
If anybody, you know, if any of the towns attended, that would count towards their hazard mitigation plan. You can check that off. But anyway, we're going to be right at Ballston Spa, and then there's a stream right there at the training center, so we don't have to go very far. We just walk. So if you'd like to sign up, let me know. You can get you signed up. Or you can just go to the link that I have on the thing.
Okay. Consolidated funding application.
Last week, I believe it was, the New York State Consolidated Funding Application System, CFAs, came out. We are primarily interested in the WQIP program. That's where we get grants for our stormwater projects, for our roadside erosion projects, culverts, things like that. I can pass this around if you want a copy. We can print one out. Things are getting tighter with the requirements, simply put. If you recall, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we put in a line item into our budget for engineering services. We're going to be using that this year because we need to have feasibility studies done in the next 2 months, potentially for some projects. I talked to Kathy Sloslow about this. We can do 90% of it, but it has to have an engineer's, doesn't have to be stamped, it just has to be signed by an engineer, you know, in the name. So I think this will be a good way to do it. But to be honest, we have some stuff already that we may be applying for that have feasibility studies. Just roughly the stuff that Dean does, the hydroseeding, the roadside stabilization doesn't need any of that, but it's the stormwater projects, the green infrastructure projects. What we used to get in under the category, we have to have a feasibility study. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's just adds some time and effort for us, but what the state was running into, I talked to the administrator of the program before. There were some communities that were putting it in, and Dan, you probably can relate, seeing some designs come through, and it's like, you knew right away, like, that's never going to work. So that's why the feasibility studies are required. So that's around, watch out, poke yourself at the state for it. So we are anticipating putting in 2 applications, potentially 3. But I see the future of the culverts probably going pretty quick because what is happening in New York is they're getting to the point now where FEMA is putting a lot of money into it. So there's going to be a lot of changes to that. So a lot of studies such as, or a study which is going to have to be done on a number of culverts is HEC-RAS. And for a simple stream crossing, let's say in Stony Creek, Frank, it might cost $20,000 to do the just the HEC-RAS computer design. And that's on top of putting in the culvert for $20,000.
Wow.
So there's going to be major changes in the next 5 years once everything's up to date with mapping, and the requirements are being put in already. So we have to watch out for that. So we maybe, if we put in for a culvert, you know, instead of normally putting in 20,000, we might be putting in 50,000 for one. And how it is. So I downloaded HEC-RAS to see if I can figure out how to use it. I'm going to talk to Kevin Hajos and Ed Downey and see if they can figure out how to use it, because maybe we can enter an agreement where if we get the money, they can get reimbursed. So at least the money is going to the county to help offset time. So anyway, don't worry, we'll work our way through it. It's not a bad thing, you know.
Hazard mitigation planning.
2 items, working rapidly to get information to the state to justify high hazard dams or to identify that they're already included in our hazard mitigation plan. Garnet Lake Garnet Lake Protective Organization, or whatever it's called, I can't remember. They are putting in for high hazard potential dam design funding that is out in New York State right now. In order to qualify for that, the high hazard dams have to have 4 different criteria within the hazard mitigation plan. Thing is, hazard mitigation plans don't have to have high hazard dam information in there or to the level that they're looking. What they did was they took, our plan was approved in 17, but sometime between 2017 and now, they put this caveat in there on the funding source. But really, they didn't have any guidance on how to do it. So the state came up with a way to do it. I'm working with Anne Marie Mason. It's worked out very well. So I sent her some stuff to kind of finalize, and hopefully we'll get to the state in the next day or 2. I think that we have enough information there that qualifies. And what does that mean? It just means that when we start the second part of what I was going to talk about, when we get into the planning part of this, which you'll note in my report, we'll probably start in October. We anticipate a grant being received by our office, and we will turn it over to the county for the hazard mitigation plan. There'll be we'll have a high hazard dam section in that, and it'll take care of everything. So it's been interesting to see how FEMA from Washington, FEMA Region 2, the DEC, and Department of Homeland Security Emergency Services are all working on things like this. It's interesting.
They're working, everybody's working together happily.
Everybody agreed that there was a way to do it, but they didn't know really what the way to do it was. So I stay tuned, and we've got something together that's mostly ready.
That's good. Westbrook Conservation Initiative update.
All right. So we did a tree planting down there. Don Lehman had a nice little article on Facebook for that. We put in 7 trees and I believe 8 shrubs. It was funding from our office, from the LGA, from the fund, and the Lake George Land Conservancy. Some of the trees that were there just didn't survive, mainly because of past maintenance activities, the weed whip, and it took off all the cambium. So we replaced some of the trees. It's a feel-good program, and it was a good day to do it. The one thing that I'm highly disappointed with Westbrook is the amount of garbage, the amount of everything you can imagine we found there and scooped up and gotten rid of. It's disgusting. People like to use the term, they love, loving it to death. No, they're not. They're killing it. I'm not going to go into everything we found, but let's just say, it would be hazardous waste, what we found and had to take care of. It's ridiculous. People are slobs. And I was going to write an article about it, and then it was like a day and a half later, 2 days later, Dave Blow had basically exactly what I was thinking in the Post-Star talking about it. So the conservation initiative, as far as functionality goes, is working great. Phosphorus removal, nitrogen removal, salt, heavy metals, and as far as habitat and the use, it's going very well. But it's the other ancillary things that you can't really manage. So, but we are going to have a meeting, I believe, June 3rd, the parties, the owners, and our office to go over a bunch of things. But if you go down there now, it's looking pretty good. Bob threw in another turtle log or two the other day because the pond one, the day I was there were 11 or 12 turtles on one log. Eric from the village said he saw about 20 on one log. I wouldn't doubt it.
You can't social distance.
What's that?
You can't social distance.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they spray botulism from a bite. So, yeah. But that's Westbrook. We're also thinking about in July doing the water quality meeting, doing a little lunch picnic, and basically having it there, looking at some projects, and doing the lunch up at the recreation field up in the village of Lake George. So
When is that?
the water quality committee. When? I think it's like July 13th or 14th. We're a little ways out, but it's the second Wednesday of July, and it's
July 14th.
All right, that's all I have for Westbrook.
I do have to admit, having been there a few times with the grain, it is very popular. It's heavily used, there's no doubt about it.
Yep.
Yeah, there are picnickers, hikers, bikers, dog walkers. We'll go right there in the tree and shrub final comments. I want to make one. I've had quite a few people come up to me and said they were really impressed with what they got. They were happy. You always get the one say, well, geez, I wish I'd known about it. I said, no excuses. We've been doing this. It's not a brand new program.
30 years.
And there was actually people from other counties, which kind of amazed me. Somebody that lives in another county, well, they didn't have this, and how come you guys did? So whatever you're doing is a good job. And I know the 500 or 600 I planted, they were excellent trees this year. Very, very nice quality trees. So
Lauren was unable to be here, but I asked her for some highlights. We purchased 8,800 seedlings, pre-sold almost 6,300 of them, and the remaining 2,500 were basically all sold. There was a handful that I think went in the ground, and that was it. We sold out of conservation packs, seeds, blueberries, apples, and pears at the sale, and deciduous and shrub species. And we're left with 1,000 trees, all of which were sent to us by the supplier by accident. So many people continue to purchase the trees throughout the week. Made a decision to donate around 400 trees to the local school groups, education events, extension, tree farmers, and local town and municipal properties. So they didn't go to waste. A lot of positive feedback. She makes a note. Overall, if we hadn't received additional trees, we would have sold out of everything before the end of the sale. And if you didn't see, I think it was a day or two before. I wasn't there. It was like I told you before, successful because I wasn't there. I stayed out of it. But Dan Steck stopped by and handed out some trees and made for a good day for everybody. So, but yeah, a lot of positive feedback on the tree shrub. Everybody, and if I go up to a landowner or if I'm doing a presentation, I usually start off with how many people know what a soil and water district is. It's kind of crickets. How many people buy tree and shrub seedlings from someplace in the spring? Oh, I do. That's us. So that's a good program for that.
yeah, I wasn't very helpful. I was planting my own, but I did stop when they came in, and I was amazed, the trees laying around. Some people were gone too, but they did a nice job. I said, boy, there's some work putting those together. Now, Mary did, and her intern did an excellent job with some of that. So I have to.
Yeah, Rachel did a great job too, getting everything coordinated with that.
Yeah, I asked Rachel if she knew about it. She said she was warned ahead of time. All right, we'll go right from there to Montesi tree dedication.
So if you recall, we were going to plant a tree for Ron Montesi. We actually were going to plant it last year. It would have been the 1-year anniversary of Ron's passing, but with COVID. We'll just blame it on that. So we got the tree in on Thursday. We put it down at the Meadowbrook Preserve down off of Meadowbrook Road in Queensbury. First, that place is a wetland because it's as dry as it is. Yeah, it's dry right now up here. And we dug down, I think about 16 inches when there's standing water down there. So we picked the right tree, got a nice big red maple. It'll do well there. So, working with Steve Lovering and John Stroud to coordinate from Queensbury perspective and from ours to pick a date and time to go down there and have a formal dedication. So, you know, we wanted to get it in the ground so we didn't have to water it. Plus, we're not doing a tree planting dedication, we're dedicating the trees.
Okay.
We got it in the ground and it is a heavy, silty soil. So Nick and I gained about 5 pounds on our bottom of our boots. It is just amazing how wet that was. So to be continued.
Okay, we'll go into the spring fish sale.
There you go, Dean.
I'll give you a break, Jim, but this will be quick as well. We did have canceled spring fish sale. A lot of things can be said, but I can just tell you this, that the hatchery was short on resources for districts. And it's unfortunate, Jim, to take it upon himself to write a letter on behalf of the district and the disposition we were placed in. Wasn't necessarily us. We were prepared for Rhonda Godlover. She had everything accounted for, track checks. Some checks were done, processed. Some just come in before the deadline. But the hatchery couldn't manage, couldn't come out into the field with the resources. They ran short. So anyways, we took care of everything. Everyone was refunded or reimbursed or checks were sent back. Everyone had been awarded. We did do good. I did good. No one showed up that day. We sent out every which way but loose to explain that it wasn't going to happen. And we did say that we anticipate for our fall program that you come on without a hitch unless we hear something from the hatchery. But it's particular for us because we team up with Saratoga and Washington County. So I was in cahoots with Dustin Lewis in Saratoga and Craig over in Washington. And they right off the bat were like, okay, no problem. It doesn't matter. We're not, you know, we can't do that. So, but the fall should be on target unless you hear otherwise. And hopefully we'll get folks back over here picking up some fish to take care of their pond management program. So stay tuned. We'll do it in the fall.
Probably with the way the weather's been going with warm weather, it's just as well.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So.
Community Conservation Program Application Review.
Okay, you guys are all set. We took care of last meeting. We took care of up beyond Jackson Wilhelm, the 4-H'er, who's going to be doing an educational program, and Carrie Moreau from Jackson Heights. And Roxanne Westcott went into AIM. Jim and Nick stole her from me, but that's okay. Well, I anticipate next month we have someone scratching at the door, teacher, first grade teacher from North Warren School, looking to upgrade a community garden at the school grounds. So stay tuned. Nothing this month. Should see something next month.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Current grant project updates.
All right, just quick, Bob, can you give a short update on the basin program, invasive species grant you're working on?
I'm working at it. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
The Lake Champlain Basin program is our underwater film from Lake George. We had Don Lehman send out the press release a couple weeks ago. As far as I can tell, it's been in like 2 or 3 publications, including I think it was an NACD newsletter. Is that correct?
The conservation clips.
Yeah. The Sun Times, or whatever it's called, the Sun, had an article in there about it today or this week, and Channel 10 carried it. That seems to be about it for that. We have talked to the Lake Champlain Basin program and confirmed procurement policies with them. So we're going to start buying the little bit of equipment, extra equipment we're going to need to have to do this. Talked with our working partners, and we're set to go for diving in July and August. Hopefully the end product will be available in early fall.
Thanks, Bob.
God help us. I hope this isn't a horribly embarrassing thing.
I'll just be embarrassing for you.
Yeah, true. At this point in my life, I'm hard to embarrass.
Okay. Nick, any updates from your stormwater projects? I know you basically got them all lined up, ready to roll.
Yeah, they're looking good. All the supplies for Trinity Rock are on their way. LGA is purchasing the the Cascade unit, which is like a big stormwater separator, through their Lake Champlain Basin Program grant, which is really nice. Most other items were able to come off the county bid sheet, so that project's moving right along. And then the Windcrest Green Infrastructure Project Planning Grant is moving along. The engineers have surveyed the corridor, so that's moving along nicely. And I think we're going to start doing some community meetings and get more of what we're looking for in the actual green infrastructure project for the planning purposes of that. But yeah, projects are moving right along. It's going to be a busy season.
Good. Thank you.
That's it?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, any of the directors, anything report, any directors got any reports to give or comments? All right, Jim, we must have a few other issues.
Absolutely. Always do. So Martin I asked her to do something for Arbor Day. That's one of the Park City programs that we fund. That continues to grow in popularity, and it's really starting to get a lot of people out. So just a quick summary. Johnsburg Central School got a sugar maple at town of Queensbury, the bronze memorial tree, red maple. The Warrensburg Beautification Committee had planted a tree at the school here in memory of Steve Parisi. The Crandall Beautification Committee, sugar maple at Grant Park. St. Mary's St. Alphonsus Catholic Schools, sugar maple. Queensbury Middle School, they did 2 programs, and that's because of Lee in our award winner from last year, our citizen conservation. Yeah, he loves that stuff. So we did a river birch and honey locust. Lee has a good background in that stuff, so we kind of let him make some more decisions. The Stony Creek 100th year library celebration. Mrs. Hastings dedication tree, a red oak. That was a mighty red oak, Frank.
Yeah, that's true.
That is a big tree. The Warren County Fish Hatchery sugar maple and Up Yonder Farm sugar maple. Roughly 170 attendees total, and we haven't done obviously the Ron's or the Up Yonder tree. So probably be over 200 people for those events. And Marn does a history of Arbor Day, about a 15-minute thing. So we're in attendance to all of them, 1 or 2 of us. And I think the community really likes them. They've gotten used to them and they're asking for more. It was the best participation year we've had. The community is continuing to generate a lot of interest. School groups, for the first time, were able to articulate where compost comes from. Fruits, veggies, table scraps, leaves, and straw. Seems like composting in homes and schools are making an impact. Our intern Rachel was very helpful in keeping the trees watered and assisted with some of the events. So that's our Arbor Day. I think that's a good hit, and that's going to be a long-term program. I briefly mentioned that Nick and I had a discussion on ag districts. This came up because an individual starting a farm up in Horicon. Some of you were on the board when Matt Brower came from Ag and Markets to discuss it. The new gentleman, Jeff Keogh, I think is his name. Nice guy, got Nick and I, we had a little conference on the phone. The first thing he said is if you don't have an Ag and Farmland Protection Board, it's going to be at least 5 years for this type of thing. The voluntary program, meaning the county would have to voluntarily approve it, and then the landowners would voluntarily join it. So you could have people who don't participate. The the thresholds are much lower than traditionally they were because the farms are smaller. Contiguous land is not quite as available. Basically, just with if the maple producers in Thurman were interested, that would be it. But it has to go through a process. It's a full hearing and everything. But really, it would be probably about a 5-year process. What does it mean? What are the benefits? With a change in demographics and people moving up here, it might be useful so that people don't get tired of some of the impacts that we may see. I don't think it's as important as some of the other counties, like out where Ryan is. It's not like we're probably going to have a lot of air quality issue, cow manure issues, but if you'd ever driven on South Johnsburg Road when Meadows was there was a neighbor who had a big sign out there that said world's largest pile of goat manure and it stinks. That's what some of this is to help go through and protect. If there's a problem, you have a problem regardless, but if it's a perceived problem, that's entirely. So I did contact Craig Leggett, since he does a lot of the ag stuff, and asked him if he was looking at it from the county perspective, if the farmer or the grazing specialist from the county was interested. So I was going to be talking at the board meeting here. I don't want to just waste time and waste Jeff's time if we don't want to do it. So I'm waiting to hear back from Craig, and I wanted to hear from you folks if you think you would like us to start looking at this and evaluating it and having the gentleman talk to us. We can achieve it, but is it worth the effort is the second part. So, and nothing has to be decided right.
I can just put my 2 cents. When I see the changes, I can just see some poor guy decide to put in a pumpkin farm or goats or whatever it could be. A problem down the road is we just see changes. You keep seeing it. Whatever it is, there seems to be somebody that issues come up.
Mm-hmm. We do have
A lot of small farms are becoming, you keep seeing the small farms popping up. Everybody's gonna have
Well, I got Nick and Martin working on small farms. There is, I think, a 3-page document I'll send out to all of you. You can take a look at it. This isn't something it doesn't matter if it gets done right now or not, but it's more for information because about every 3 years we get somebody asking about it. So it doesn't have anything to do, people come in for soil group worksheets, which is ag value assessments. It has nothing to do with that. It's not tied into that. No. It's not tied into being a business. You don't get a tax exempt number from it. So it's the big thing is, this is one thing that they pointed out. Basically, the state has authority on the ag district once it's approved, not the county. That's the one thing. It removes the county from it and the town or municipality. But what they found is there's a trade-off that could be good or bad, because if you have somebody at the state who, maybe there's something that the local population doesn't like, that would be bad for the locals would not like it. However, if there is a personal grudge at the local level, it alleviates that. So there's pros and cons, and that Jeff is very upfront about that. So, and if you'd like to hear from him sometime, we can do that in a meeting. I think he'd actually like to come up. So let's see, that's ag. Any questions on ag districts? So Nick, there's 2 things if you can, that I came up with. You want to give a brief update about the website and then about the AEM program?
Yeah, so the website is moving along nicely. Ryan, who is designing the website for us, Jim, Martin, and I really hashed out all the details of where we wanted items on the website, what photos we wanted on there, what new content we wanted on there. So we sent all that to him about a couple weeks ago, and then he plugged it all in and sent us a list of items saying, okay, you have some, areas where you have extra links that you can put stuff into. I highly recommend you utilize this section of the website. So Jim, Martin, and I got back together again and kind of brought together all that content of how we wanted to fill it in or what we wanted deleted. So, I mean, already on the first go, the website's looking really nice. So I sent the rest of that content to Ryan, I believe on Friday. So he'll plug that in, and then basically what he's going to do is take all the information from our current website. So all of our links, so like our projects and programs, all of our reports, our old meeting minutes, and plug that into where we asked him to on our new website. So now that he has basically the final information, I'm sure he'll have a few more questions and edits for us. But it should be up and running and ready to go pretty soon now that we kind of got everything where we want it on the website. And it's looking good. I can't wait to get it done so that we have full control of our website, and it's going to make life so much easier for us to get information on there and get information out there as quick as possible. So we're really looking forward to that. And then what else were you asking about, Jim? Website and
About, yeah, the AEM and the funding dollars that are going to be available.
oh yes. So I sat in on a soil and water conservation committee AEM update. So we're currently in AEM round 16 this year, and then this October we'll be submitting our kind of annual action plan for the next 2 years of our AEM program. So that's where we have to come up with, an estimated amount of time Marvin and I are going to put into this program, as well as Jim, and how many hours we think we're going to put into it. And then there's the new category, which is AEM is based on tiers. So there's a tier 4 cost share project dollars. So that was really why I sat in on that meeting, to kind of get some updates on how those project dollars could be used, where they could be used. And there were some areas that Mara and I did not know about with those project dollars. So in order to qualify for that, it's nice because it's non-competitive funds for our farmers. So we can actually compete for, or we don't have to compete for ag funds now, which is nice. But in order to be eligible for those dollars, and Ryan, please chime in if I miss anything or if you want to add anything. The farm has to have 10,000 per year of income, which we knew about. There has to be a water quality issue, of course. These are water quality funds. And then the third category really is it has to have like 7 acres of production. I believe that maybe there's a little bit of maneuverability in that, but having 7 acres of production for a lot of our farms, that's going to limit a significant number of our farms that would be eligible for these tier 4 cost share funds. So we have a month to submit comments on this, on these project dollars. So we were thinking about maybe reading more into this and maybe submitting some comments on behalf of some of our smaller Warren County farms and why we think they should be eligible for these project dollars. Because I think that, some of our 2-acre farms, 1-acre farms probably, they produce a good amount on those small farms, and it's a significant amount of nutrients they have to put into those mixed vegetable farms in order to turn a bed over 4 times to sell that produce. So we were thinking about maybe submitting some comments, and we would ask the board to review those and maybe sign off on, kind of, looking to see if we can't get some of our farmers into this program that don't quite meet those categories, or that last 7 acres of production category. So yeah, that's it. Just because we're limited, our farms are much smaller. Most of them are much smaller mixed vegetable farms, but it doesn't certainly doesn't alleviate the water quality issues just on a smaller acreage basis. But yeah, anything else, Jim, that I may have missed that we discussed? Is Jim running around?
No.
Yeah, he's running around.
I think he's got, anything else, Jim?
No, I was just gonna say, Ryan, did you have anything else you could share with us on that, or is that kind of how it is right now?
That's a good synopsis of what's coming down the line here, and you'll see later this summer. But I would encourage districts to comment by June 15th. That's our next board meeting when they'll pass it. if you do have ideas, because they do incorporate things that they see come through. There's 3 big changes in the next round, and those are all based on ideas from districts around the state. So we always try to tighten things up and make it work better for people. One neat thing that they're considering, and they'll probably pass at our next meeting, is allowing you to enroll those non-competitive funds sometime the following spring. So if you want to take the winter to plan it out, you don't have to get it all wound up into this one plan by November 1st. You can submit for the money and then kind of chip away at it over the winter time, since that's a big planning time to kind of pick those projects. But I would agree with you. It's a little arbitrary, that number, that $10,000 mark and the 7 acres. In my opinion, water quality, contravention of water quality is an issue unto of itself. So maybe there's an angle there. If you do have a good project, we could consider enrolling those into for some funding into Tier 4 there. So good idea. Good to comment on that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's so much the income; it's more the acreage that is going to
Sure.
limit some of our farms. Yeah.
Yep, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and something that Maren pointed out, and we've heard the mantra at the local, state, and federal level, it's a little, does a disservice to those small farms, but everybody wants to use a statement of every acre counts. Well, no, not every acre would count then. So I think that's the important thing right there. And as Nick said, we can have 1.5 acres. How large is Hales, Nick? How many acres is Hales?
In production, he's about 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah, and he's probably one of the highest producing vegetable growers in the county. He's direct market and stuff like that. So I'm just using it as an example. I don't know if he necessarily has a lot of water quality issues. It may not pertain to him, but there's a 1 acre farm which would far surpass maybe Mark, unless Mark went out and tore up a whole bunch of roads. And, so we don't want to be encouraging people to have to, to do bad things to make it into the program. So that's all I have.
All right, before I forget, we should do a motion to accept the monthly financial, both the treasurer and financial report. Now that everybody's taking a look at it, we got a motion? Second? All those in favor? All right, get Rhonda here, we'll give it to you.
Thank you.
I just want to make one comment. I know we're going into the reports. I think Nick won this month. His comment on the 4-hour training, you getting to feel like Bill Murray and Groundhog Day. I thought that kind of made me chuckle reading 3 reports.
Don't tell him that, because he already said, he goes, I'm a pretty funny guy. I'm like, no.
Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
I knew it would go over well.
I just happened to think is that movie, and I wasn't watching it. That movie was on the other night, and I thought, and I saw the comment. I said, oh, geez, must have been watching TV and saw that movie again.
We have to total up sometime just to see where we stand on those. But going back to 2009, I think, my guess is we're going to be about, via Zoom and in-person classes, we have to be up around 250.
Oof.
So it doesn't get any better for any one of us. So.
Okay, want to get into the reports? Any of the Jim?
I'm good.
Bob?
Might grab the phone.
I think he probably has the phone. Dean, you got anything else?
Dean left.
Dean left, that's right. Nick, we heard from Nick. Nick, anything else?
Well, we had an Upper Hudson River Watershed Coalition meeting this month, and we're looking to close out our current WQIP grant this year. So we are, as a coalition, looking to apply to some of those CFAs as well as WQIPs watershed wide as well. So I think it's going to be a good year of grants and kind of offsetting our office grants with our coalition grants. So if we can bring in more dollars to the county for water quality.
Okay, I know Maren, I should remember it. I did happen to, I was a speculator on Saturday, and I saw somebody coming out all dressed in camouflage in downtown Speculator, and the turkey report unsuccessful. Those silly birds keep gobbling, but they're safe so far. Ryan, last and not least.
Sure, yeah, thank you. I do have a report included. The only other thing I didn't mention that is in there, or that is not in there, The Lake Champlain Basin Program has their annual summit on June 2nd, which I'll be attending on behalf of the Champlain counties. So that includes all of their staff and about 6 subcommittees, ranging in all the themes of the projects that they do. So they'll be brainstorming themes for the next fiscal year, as well as reviewing their opportunities for action for their 5-year goals. So I was telling the Champlain counties at a Quickney meeting, if you have strong opinions on their themes, on their opportunities for actions, projects that may not fit into anywhere, Warren County generally does pretty well in their grant programs through them. But if you have ideas that you just don't see a place for and you'd like to see it there, share them with me. I'm happy to kind of pass that along and be your voice for the Basin program there. So other than that, a lot of opportunities there in my report for grants here and there, depending on which region of the state you're in, and always around for trainings and policy discussions. And I'm up to traveling again too. So if you want to meet in the field and review some stuff, just give me a holler. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your report. Anything else we need to cover, Jim, or we got everything?
No, I think we're all set unless somebody has another topic.
Anything we need to? All right, I guess we can have a motion to adjourn. Second? All those in favor adjourn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.